Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Doctor Who Guide. I'm your host, Alex Patterson, and today I'm super excited to be joined by Doctor Who fan, fellow contributor to the 1997 annual, and artist Richard Jones. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on this fantastic channel that you've set up. So thank you
Oh,
for
thank
inviting me.
It's my pleasure. And today we're going to be talking about your artwork that appears in the 1997 annual, which I have just here. And it's specifically, oh, look at that. We're matching. That's amazing. Specifically, the story Manhattan Transference by Paul Burns. Now, you did the background illustrations, and I had an interview with not only Paul Burns, who wrote the story, but also with Andrew Parsons, who did the character illustrations. So it feels very satisfying to have collected all three, if you will. I'm a collector at
The
heart.
triad is complete.
The trio, the three
Absolutely.
doctors, the three doctors. I should have asked you all which doctor you'd be if you had to pick out of
Oh,
the first three and see which
well, my
which ones
grey hair.
lined up.
I'm probably Hartnell with my grey hair, but then Paul is much older than me, so I could
We'll
be
have
perfectly.
to we'll have to see what they comment. So, yeah, this is very exciting to have you on. You are on Facebook, so we'll link to that in the description down below. So, I always want to promote the artists who are on here, and that's how you can connect with Richard. So let's dive into your character illustrate or well, your background illustration. So what was that like before we specifically look at them? What's sort of that process of working? Because I've talked with artists who have done all
Mm.
of the illustrations and I got to get Andrew's perspective, but what's it like doing the backgrounds and having somebody else do the characters?
Well,
Are you
it was a funny process, really, and I think that's probably. I mean, I'm a teacher. I'm not an artist, so I mean, I'm a total fan who is just dabbles with art now and again, and for relaxation. So I know Paul. So Paul Burns, who wrote Manhattan Transference, he's a really good friend of mine, and we see each other at conventions and chat all the time, and I think and during lockdown we had like a group going, so we had a really good friendship, and I would kind of like show him some of my art. I'm doodling away, and he'd say, "Oh, this is fantastic," and of course he's a really good writer, and he's been writing Doctor Who stories for lots of publications, through like Celestial Toy Room and things like that. So I knew his work, and then in 2021, which seems a long time ago, he sent me the the story Manhattan Transference, and he said to me, "Would you mind illustrating it?" So I said, "Yeah, sure." I mean, so I've got no idea about illustration, and I've never done anything like this before. And I think that's what's made me kind of feel so enthused by the whole process of this, was that I'd never had any experience at all about it. As I said, just a few little doodles here and there. So I read the work, and he got me in contact with Mark from the annual, and he then asked me to send some work, some bits and pieces I've done through, and I did. And he said, "Oh yeah, I like the stuff," and it was just not really a style at all. Again, it was all just Doctor Who doodles and pictures I've done. And then he asked me to do some pieces for Paul's story. So I think originally the concept, so the concept art, I suppose, when I first did it, I think there's like six pieces that I had. Um, the first one was the Rani, because obviously the Rani is the spoilers. The Rani is one of the main um, key characters in this story. And reading Paul's story is it's really descriptive. So there was a lot of stuff you could just kind of pick out. It's so easy to pick out some scenes. So I picked out some key scenes to see, thinking of the annuals that I grew up with in the 1970s. The Tom Baker ones, where the illustrations there were really kind of like, if they follow the story along. The Glenn Ricks pieces were amazing in those annuals. So I knew I had to do like a first one, a first setting scene where you'd have the title and all that, and then I thought about what sort of things you'd see it throughout the story. So the landing of the TARDIS and the Eighth Doctor and Stacy in Times Square was the first one, and then but I started with Irani because I love. I think my artwork is more kind of like not fine art, but I'm not a comic book artist at all. That sort of thing. So I'm it's more fine art really. So I did a piece that was of the Rani, and it was just a black piece, and it was very it was a very, very Kato Mara esque. So I kind of like that's the first piece I did, sent that out, and yeah, great, that was great. And then I kind of sent him some ideas of what pieces I was going to do. So originally there was the Times Square, the Rani, the tube entrance where the and originally the monsters in it, or the kind of the ones that change, they were originally the chameleons from the Faceless Ones from the
Right.
second
Right.
Doctor's story in 1966. That was changed, I think, later because it was I think they couldn't use some of the characters. I'm not sure whether it was the same time as the animated DVD was coming out. So I think that maybe there was a difficulty there. So they changed those, and the Sard, the Ice Warrior, wasn't in it either at this stage. So then there was the tube entrance where the pedestrian or the member of the public is changing. Then there was the Space Girls on stage, and the kind of like the kind of the scene for that. Inside the TARDIS, because the creatures apparate or they materialize in the TARDIS, and that was another kind of rough concept art I did. And then finally, Stacey on stage with holding the bracelet with the band up. So they were the original ones. So I did 6 of those and sent them off, and then it was quite a while then until they Mark came back to me and said, now again, going back to uh, my lack of experience, these are all hand drawn. So I'd never used digital art, and I never had access to it. My qualifications in my art were just hand drawn and paintings and watercolor and all those sort of old school type things. So digital art was totally foreign to me. So Mark came back and said, look, could you possibly do them digitally? And I thought, oh my god. So I then my partner then bought an iPad Pro conveniently. So then I started doing that. So I started converting them all across. And then when I was looking at them, I'm sending them across to Mark. As I was doing them, I was sending them to him. He was coming back and saying, I knew that my landscapes, my backgrounds were better than my figures. My figures are not my strengths. And I've been funny enough, I've been working quite a lot on those since, kind of improve myself. But my figures weren't best. So that was when Andrew then came on board. And I think that was in 2022 in September. So you can imagine it's obviously, a good time, the process. And then and I was like, what? They're changing my artwork. They're bringing somebody else in. Oh my. So after I kind of like calmed down and started stomping around the place, I then kind of, Andrew sent me some work, or they sent me through that, and his work is just amazing. It is brilliant. I mean, it kind of like it just lifted the whole pieces up. I mean, my figures were nothing compared to his, but it was still the elements of what I originally concept art was still there, which I thought was really, really lovely and really great. But I mean, his work is just phenomenal. I mean, it's fantastic. And so that's when we kind of put the two together. So then I then just did the backgrounds, and I started working on the backgrounds and putting little Easter eggs in and various things like that. And then they sent me through the rough sketches of the art of the figures. And I sort of placed them on the background so I could see what it looked like, whether the the vista, or whether the tube entrance could be seen, or what things could be seen. So I just sent them back saying, these, you can maybe place them here, or maybe and then the final things came through before publication. And after all that process of like 2 years, it looked fantastic. So I was really, really pleased, and just have a little small bit in in this process. So yeah, it was kind of like that was in a nutshell, that was the process in terms of start to finish, from the concept of Paul's artwork right through the process. And even though there were bits, and I thought, I'm going to give up. I can't do this. It's just too much. The actual process of it was fantastic, and I would recommend it to anybody who is a fan who would love to have got just to do it, because it was great. And ultimately, when you see it in print, when he comes through the door and you open it up, it's like, oh my god, I'm buying all the copies. So
Right.
yeah, it was really good.
There's not quite, I'm trying to like describe the feeling of being able to like hold something that you creatively were a part of in an actual publication. It's like nothing else. It's
Absolutely. And in something that represents your childhood, because those annuals were, I've still got the original annuals I had as a kid, and I remember just like flicking through the annuals and reading all the stories. So seeing something that is linked to your childhood, and I'm still a massive fan of Doctor Who. So it was an amazing privilege to be part of it. And I got my little card through the other day. This is from Mark, and my thank you card with my pin in it from.
amazing.
So
Look
yeah,
at
so that's a
that.
really brilliant and little fantastic little thing on that. Thank you card. So I was
Amazing.
chuffed to bits. I know.
That's so cool. I love that. And you talk about your, childhood and reading these annuals as they came out. I, that's an experience that, many of us have had. I mean, I got into Doctor Who when I was 12, so relatively late compared to a lot
Yeah.
of the stories that I hear, but it is still just it's something that's so special to have that connection to. Did you get these as like, the when the annuals came out, what was it like a Christmas time thing? Was that what they
Yeah.
when they released them for, I believe?
It was
Yeah.
yeah, it was Christmas time, and it was that time. I think it was Christmas time. It was always Christmas time when the annuals came out. Very similar to what happens here now. We still have, the annuals all started to appear just before Christmas. So yeah, they were kind of a big thrill, really. So, and of course, that in the 70s you didn't have repeats, or you didn't have VHS, you didn't have huge amount of target books. So you were looking at these annuals and looking at the illustrations, thinking about what you saw on TV, months ago. So it was a really important part.
Right, right. And these, I mean, some of the annual stories were so like they were Doctor Who and yet they weren't. They were really, really imaginative and really just went in some incredible directions. And, you know,
Absolutely.
but they were limited back then by being a number of colors that they could have. Because maybe they'd have like all sepia colors or something, and or black and white illustrations. But nowadays, it's so cool that this annual that we have here is so just chock full of beautiful illustrations from so many different styles, so many different
Mm.
artists. So I really just want to applaud you for taking the leap into this world of artwork. I would not have known. It's beautiful art, as we'll see. We'll get this. You sent me pictures in various stages, from sketch to colors, and we all have, those of us who have got the annual, which it's linked in the description down below, definitely get it. We have the final versions, but not only did you jump into this kind of unknown area, but you also pivoted when you heard that you'd be, collaborating with other artists. What was that kind of moment for you of saying, you know what, I'm gonna do it. It was that email from or message from Paul. What
Yeah.
was that like, sort of staring into this abyss and making a moment? Because I remember like when I first replied, okay, am I gonna write
Mm.
this story or am I gonna not? And go, being nervous about like, oh, this is a lot of work, at the end of the day. And it was a project that for me started in summer of 2021. But what was that like for you? That moment where you said, will
Well, I
I,
think it's
won't I?
yeah. I think I think I kept thinking, I had to kind of kept checking myself, saying, this is what must happen in real for illustrators in the real world. This is nothing compared to what they must go through. The piece of work could get rejected or thrown out. It was really supportive, and Mark was really supportive all the way through the process. When he was sending, and he'd come back and say, well, try this or this, and then about doing it digitally rather than hand drawn. Um, so, but I think that with the bringing on the collaboration, I think it was as I said, my strengths in figures are not great, and so I could see that, now looking at the annual, you can see the type of artwork throughout. Mine just wouldn't have fitted properly there, and it wouldn't have kind of, especially with the main. I think I'm a bit biased, but I think that the Manhattan Transfer is one of the main stories in the annual. Uh, um,
It is one of the very first stories that you
yeah,
dive into, and so in that sense, it is one that is
kind of a
representing what's to
pivotal.
come, and giving you
Absolutely,
that
yeah,
impression, and
yeah,
even if you like, I think all of us contributors went to like our pages first, like I think that's a pretty universal
absolutely. Instagram it
experience.
all quick. Yeah,
But
I mean
for
that's it.
the collector, for the fan, for the reader, I mean, a lot of times you might just flip through and look at the images
Mm,
first too.
mm,
So that
absolutely.
artwork, the stories that come earlier in the annual, they do set the tone for what's
Yeah,
to come. So
absolutely. And I think that's what was important. And I'm sure that with these annuals, there's not just one person who casts their eye on these things. There's lots of people. So I'm sure there's lots of input. So yeah, I mean, I think initially I was a bit kind of like, well, what the heck is going on here? This is ridiculous. It's my artwork. How dare they? It's my. But looking back, I laugh and joke because this is the process, and this is what illustrators go through, and this. But it was great to see when I had the work sent through, and Mark sent me the sketches that Andrew had put together. First of all, they were brilliant, and I think I was worried that in my head the pieces would be totally different from what I had conceived in this concept artwork right at the beginning. But in fact, Andrew's Andrew's figures really were. I mean, they were fantastic. Of course, the set pieces in it, and they kind of complemented what I'd thought. That I was a big sigh of relief, thinking, okay, yeah, they look fantastic, and they are phenomenal. Um, and it just made it so. Yeah, I got over it like that.
I know, right?
So
I can relate to that a little bit because I had worked out a story pitch that was maybe like, I don't know, a page long, and I had this idea in my head of
mm,
what it was going to be and how it was going to happen, and I get this email from Mark that's like, well, that's great, but I actually wanted to do one set all entirely inside of the TARDIS, and I had to
yeah,
completely pivot from my original story idea, which was like, this is so good, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I have to
yeah.
do it all in the TARDIS,
It
and
it throws you, doesn't it? It really
yeah,
kind of like
yeah,
knocks you sideways, and you go, "Well, what? What are they? No, they've got to have this." But actually, they know what they know what they're talking about. They know what they're
yes.
doing. So they're the experts, and you put your hands in theirs. And as I said, I'm a teacher. I'm not an artist, so I mean, I'll do anything to get an annual. So not
That's
everything, but
amazing.
you know what I mean. That's
Yeah, yeah. So what are you a teacher in, if you don't mind sharing? What's your
Well, I'm
subject?
in a secondary school in Southwest London. I used to teach geography, but I'm more an assistant head teacher, what we call over here. So it's ages from 10 to 18 students, and I'm now more. I look after them in terms of pastoral wise. I'm like on the just below the head teacher, so it's kind of I'm more running after kids these days, but they all know I love Doctor Who because my office is kind of emblazoned with illustrations of Target books or character option Daleks and things like that in the windows. So they all know I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and they all
I
come
was
and speak to me. It's amazing how now you hear the next generation come and speak about the program, which is brilliant.
I was gonna say, are there fans in your school? Do they talk about it with you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, and it's predominantly a girls' school up until from 10 until 16, and then we have a mixed sixth one, a very large mixed kind of I don't know in America whether it's high school or whether, but it's before they go to university,
Yeah,
and the boys and the girls they just are they love it, so it's great. It's good to see how you can talk about it and
that's
you think wow.
amazing.
When
That's
I was
amazing. Yeah.
their age, it was like not spoken about. It was you were right, you're a nerd. It was very negative, but now it's you've got to speak about it. It's really, really positive.
Right. So, like, when you were growing up, was there, did you get to, obviously you're saying it was different from, kind of the popularity of it now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit more about that, what it was like for you growing up as a Doctor Who fan, but also
Well,
how you first saw the movie in the Eighth Doctor.
I mean, firstly, I had a really good friend in school, which I think you know, and his name is Fez Raymond.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
both myself and Fez lived in South Wales, and we went to school together. So we were the, I suppose, just the two kind of like diehard Doctor Who fans, and we would talk about it on the bus going to school. We both did art, as a, and we did art right through to the, what we have A levels here, which are the top exams, and we both did that together. He was amazing comic book artist, as you can see. I mean, he's amazing. I was deadly jealous, and I was the one that did all the painting and the landscapes and the my. I remember doing my final piece of art with him. He was busy drawing comic book stuff, and I was doing a painting. I had to do a painting of a riverside, and I wanted it to be the riverside in Silver Nemesis, where the TARDIS lands, where the Doctor and Ace are
Yes.
sitting. That was my riverside, and I did it for my exam piece. So we both grew up together. So both of us were the as I said, the diehard Doctor Who fans. So we both had our our conversations, and we both talked about it. And then the movie came, and it was a bit of a shocker because it was totally different from what the classic series was. But Sylvester McCoy was in it,
Yeah.
and it was bigger and you know budget much bigger and set in America. Um, but Paul McGann I loved Paul McGann and Daphne Ashbrook. I thought they were great. I thought it's a great piece. It's a shame when you see him now in the Night of the Doctor. I think it's the Night of the Doctor,
Yeah.
and the Big Finish audios. I mean, he's amazing. No, he's
Yes.
an amazing
Yeah.
actor. So, and rumor has it, I don't know, is this true? Is there going to be like an Eighth Doctor spin-off? Do we know these? Is it?
I've
There's lots
heard
of things
that.
growing around.
I've heard that too. I have not seen
Who
any
knows?
official confirmation, but Russell has many amazing things in store for us, I'm sure.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you're right. That was kind of the say what you will about the TV movie, and many people have. But I think that the casting is above reproach. It really is. I
Yeah,
mean, Paul McGann as the Doctor. It really is such a shame that even as quickly as the week or 2 weeks later in the UK that the movie was broadcast, they already knew that it didn't get the ratings they were hoping for enough to
no,
launch the series. But
yeah,
I've always said if there was a way to protect our new series timeline and just sort of create an alternate one where we did get that 90s Eighth Doctor TV series up until
that's it.
maybe 2005, and then have that sought
Well,
after regeneration. Yeah.
I mean, the characters in the annual that are in the Manhattan Transfers, they evolved out of the Radio Times um,
Right.
comic strips. So the Radio Times is like a TV listings magazine over here, and in it, Lee Sullivan had did these comic strips which are amazing. So it kept the character of the Doctor alive, and it introduced
Right.
Stacy and it introduced Sard. So um, at least there was some reference in the back that we could use. But
Yeah,
no, it's
absolutely.
and isn't it funny how now we I don't know what it's like over there with you, but you must be seeing on the forums how the UK are up in arms about the fact that the new series is going to be broadcast in America at a decent time, and we're having it at midnight. So I mean, it's that sort of it's that sort of discussions again, isn't it? The
Right.
TV movie American production values, Spielberg at the time, I think it was. All these things are, but in the heart of it, it's still Doctor Who, isn't it? And whether you watch
Right.
it at midnight or in the morning or when it's going to be
Yeah.
broadcast, it's still
Yeah.
Doctor Who's.
It is a very interesting time, and it's because for years, if it was broadcast in the UK at 7 p.m., it was
Mm,
broadcast in the US on BBC America at 7 p.m., but that was 5 hours later. So I'd have to
yeah.
stay off of social media for 5 hours, or that's
Mm,
if I so it was always about avoiding spoilers. And even the official YouTube channel, I remember in there's a returning character in Revolution of the Daleks, who, if you've seen the episode, you know. But I had that spoiled not by a fan online excitedly talking
Mm,
about it, but by the official Doctor Who YouTube channel
this
posting
is
a
it.
video saying
Yeah,
so and so's back, and I was like, ah!
absolutely,
and
absolutely.
and so it is, I understand the frustration people are having of, I need to stay off the internet now, and I'm not
Mm,
used to having to avoid spoilers if you're in the UK. But I will say that, dispel the myth that where some people have been saying Americans are getting it sooner than the UK. And I'm like, that's not true. It's a different day, yes, the 10th versus the 11th, but it's how time zones work. We're
it's
5 hours
not at
ahead
midnight
of
though.
you. It's
It's not at midnight.
it's not at
But it,
midnight. It's a
but I
very
think,
convenient time for me, but it's
I,
not before
yeah.
anybody. But it is that world of streaming, right? Where
Well,
now,
this is
because
it.
of
I mean,
iPlayer, it's
yeah,
available from
of
midnight
course.
onwards.
I mean, the specials that with them that with David Tennant, I didn't watch them live. I watched them because I was out. Funny enough, I'd booked theatre. 'Cause I'm a big theatre fan, so I booked theatre for each of those Saturdays. I was like, I can't believe it. This in the, but people don't watch them. People don't watch it live these days, so they watch it at different times.
Right.
So I
I mean,
watched it as soon as I got in at 11 o'clock. So,
right.
but I still had the moment where everything was exactly the same feeling.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. It is. And my family always, like, we always found that instead of the time that it came out for the US, oftentimes, because we all wanted to watch it together, it was like the one show that we all could agree that we
Mm,
enjoyed
mm,
watching.
mm, mm.
And so we would watch it the next day. We wouldn't watch it right as it came out. So I've
Yeah,
always had to, like, be like, okay, shutting off my internet for a couple of, for a
yes,
day, and then
people
watching
should do that.
it.
Should
Yes,
do
yes.
that. Well, we'll see
So
in a few weeks' time. So how exciting! It's
I
not long
know.
now.
I know it's coming right up. I'm so excited for the new season and for what they're doing with it. It's going to be so exciting.
Yeah.
Um, so let's dive into the artwork that you sent, because I'm really excited to share it. I love seeing behind the scenes stuff, and so seeing in process artwork as well as the finished stuff is very exciting. So I'm going to share my screen, and we can just talk about your process for each of these
Okay.
images that you've
My,
shared.
my
So,
naive process. There we go. Okay. So that was
so
the final piece of without the Doctor and Stacy and Sard on them. So yeah, that was quite interesting. You can see my figures are so look at them now and think, oh my god, look at them, they're all kind of horrific. But I just try to capture that. I love Times Square. I've been to New York so many times. I've taken trips with
nice.
with kids there, so I knew New York, and it's that sort of kind of imposing buildings, but also the vibrancy of it, isn't it? And I think in Paul's first paragraph of the whole thing, he talks about the neon lights and the ant-like movement of figures, I think it is, and the hustle and bustle of the. So you try and capture it. I mean, that's my attempt. I mean, you can't, can you, in New York? It's just crazy. But it's that
Yeah.
sort of that perspective I wanted to, and that kind of looking up and um, you know down from down the avenues. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's just so amazing. Are there any hidden references in this
no, there's not in
particular
this
image?
one.
Right. I do.
No,
I do like
I think I
the.
was under pressure doing this. Um,
I like the
I no,
dogs
there's
with a
not.
with a
There's
Z. There's dogs with
yeah,
a Z.
yeah. And I think
Beautiful.
I just try to remember. I looked at some of my pictures and to see what the neons. I think is it Century 21 or something like that, or I can't remember
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
store it
Yeah.
is.
Hmm.
That I just remember those sorts of um and just without the yeah, I mean, I just I all those. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, if you actually put in the detail that's in Times
Yeah.
Square, it
Yeah.
would be just so packed. But yeah, I was pleased with it. There was another version where you mentioned about the old annuals where they had like sepia.
Hmm.
So there was different versions. So a color version, black and white version, or a gray and blue version. So it was so that rather than a color version. So that it was
Right.
that was some ideas that were sent through to them. But yeah, I
That's
was pleased
that's
with that. And,
incredible.
and the three then figures, that were placed on into it were fantastic.
Yeah, and that's what I love too, is like by getting to see these images, we get to see what's behind the characters. So
Mm,
it's a very sort
mm,
of 3D experience.
mm.
I'll pop back to kind of this initial sketch with
You know what I mean? Do you notice I don't my aversion to figures? So Stacey's face isn't done because I want to leave that to the last minute because I can't stand drawing faces. And but it's that sort of that was the bit where I think at the beginning, I'm not sure whether it was in the original in the final one, but she was eating a pizza when she
yes,
walked out the
yeah,
time, or she bought the pizza straight away as she walked out the time. So that was what I wanted to kind of capture there. But
right. And
yeah, it was
we get a bit of color
yeah.
and the face
These are
in there.
these
I
original kind of like concept stuff. But see
right,
that so that she was in her battle is a spaceship outfit from the Radio Times. I think it was the
right.
Dreadnought that she came from the
Yeah.
from that. So yeah.
I love the cheese just sort of dripping off the pizza. That's it's
Yeah.
making me very
I mean,
hungry.
look at the face. I mean, the face tells everything. I mean, she looks the face, the drawing is like a melted welly boot. I mean, it's just horrific. When I look at it now, I think, oh my God, what was I thinking of? But that's yeah, they're not my strengths figures.
But
But
I
yeah,
mean,
it was like
that's
it was my and you could see that then the final piece, how amazing Andrew's work, but it just kind of like it kept the flavor of it, but it
exactly,
just
yeah.
a massive total transformation of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so thrilled.
Again, just, really credit to you for diving into this world and doing, this. It really is incredible what you where you ended up, and it's so cool to see these sketches. Now, this is
Those look like movies, yeah. And
yeah,
Penn Street Station. Again, I'm not sure whether Paul had put that in the written work, but I know I'd stayed near Madison Square Gardens where it's set, so I knew that Penn Street, because it's all down that line, isn't it? From
right.
Times Square. So yeah, so I made sure that I looked at some references to subway entrances.
Hmm. Yeah, and we've got the Sonic as well.
The Sonic and the yeah, and then that was the faceless one. They're all supposed to be grey
Hmm.
originally because they were from the Chameleons.
Right.
Um, but that changed then afterwards. And I think there was one that the there was one in the one with the interior in the TARDIS of the Chameleons. There was two versions where to make them a little bit different, I put in kind of like slashes into their skin. But but I was really pleased with that. I was pleased with my perspective on that. I thought it was
Yeah, incredible perspective there. And that's so hard to get right.
yeah,
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 yeah. And here we have this beautiful color background. Like,
yeah.
oh, just wonderful. The way
Oh
you've
gosh,
got the sign, the
it's seems a
numbers,
long time ago.
the
Yeah,
way it just seems to go on and in forever. It's really, really lovely. Oh
thank
my
you. I mean,
goodness.
it's just and I look at them and think, oh my god, they're terrible. But it's just that I think the thing that my learning curve with this was just doing it digitally and putting in textures and
Right,
things like that and
right.
changing. I mean, it's a different world, digital art. I mean, when you saw my handwritten, my drawn, my pencil sketches,
Hmm.
and then when you do it digitally, my god, there's a world out there where when you see the illustrations now and in books and things, you think, okay, I can see how they've really mastered the digital art world. So
Right.
yeah,
And
it's really good.
you're not the only artist on this annual who's made that transition to digital artwork, and it's just fascinating to hear about that because, it's an adjacent type of thing, but I've swapped editing platforms. I was using one for 7 years straight,
Mm,
and then had
mhm.
to go to Premiere Pro, and it's a terrifying experience because
Oh my
you
god,
feel like a
absolutely.
beginner again, and you're like,
Yeah.
I've been editing for 10 years, 7 years, and on that
Mm,
program, and I'm like, but somehow I feel like I don't know how to edit anymore. But then you do figure
absolutely.
out there's lots of transferable knowledge. You do figure out, okay, this is where this goes, and this is what,
Mm,
once I know how to use the tools again, I can
mm.
build,
Yeah, no, absolutely. No,
Um,
it was quite scary actually, because it is a world that, because you know we I think as an artist, with a paintbrush or pen, you have a feeling for that bit of
right.
wood that you're using, and you know, to go from that to this thing, you know, it's like, oh my god, how can I do it? But you know, it's just fantastic with opportunities now that it
Yeah.
brings, and
Yeah.
you know, some, as I said, some of the stuff you couldn't do, and it's also quite quick, not quick, but it's a quicker process. But I
Right.
love, you know, all the artists that still do. I mean, ones I grew up with are like on the VHS covers, or you know, Alistair Pearson and
Yes. Yes.
all those. You know, I've seen some of the original pieces that they've done, and I've just been to the Western Superman exhibition of all the artwork, Doctor Who artwork, and
I
that's
got
just
to.
amazing.
It is. I got to go there. I
Oh, you
was in
did?
the UK back in late October, early November, and I got to go there. It was
Oh my god,
amazing.
amazing! And it was actually quite moving, because we saw some of the Target books, the artwork that you'd just had seen,
Yes.
you know, like in a little version as a kid, and seen them
Yes.
up. Oh my god! And the work into it is just stunning. And you know, I love all that. And
It is.
I think with some of the old Doctor Who monthlies, they used to show the sketches of the new VHS cover for this, and it used to be the, you know, the artist sketches before and it was just stunning, brilliant, and that's a massive inspiration, isn't it? And
Oh
so
yeah.
I take my hat off to everybody.
It was so incredible. Was there a Cyberman outside the exhibit when you went? Because there was for me.
No, there was a Dalek. There was a
Oh,
Dalek
okay.
outfit, and
Yep.
but there wasn't a Cyberman. I think
Nice. They swapped it out by that
they
point.
swapped it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to
Yeah.
put the
Yeah.
same person.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
play?
Oh my goodness. And so here we have another beautiful background for a very kind of big reveal in the story, as you were saying. Um, and then so I've got to see what these book covers say. So we have time loops,
Yeah, time loops. There's Luddite Rebellion
and
and
then
Time Dimensions
time.
by P&J. So
Oh,
these were, Time Loop was, um, I can't remember what Time Loop was now. Obviously, the Luddite Revolution, the Rani, and the Mark of the Rani, that it's set in the Luddite Revolution. So I put that book there. Time Dimensions, I think it was to do with dimensions in time or something like that. And
yeah,
P&J is Pip and Jane from Pip and Jane Baker. So
amazing.
those three things I put in there. I was going to have a um, kind of like I was trying to get an image of one of her devices to put on the side there, but I didn't in the end. That plant I just put in because I thought it looked kind of a bit alien, and of course
Yeah,
she's kind of a biochemist, isn't she? So I thought she'd have something in her office that would be quite
definitely.
potentially lethal. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Oh my goodness. And the just the view out back, the skyline, the city. It's
Well,
great.
the Chrysler building is one of
Yes.
my favorite buildings. I think that's the Chrysler, isn't it? Is that the Chrysler? It is the
Yeah.
Chrysler.
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorite buildings. But you know, New York is just, I mean, it's just one view after another, isn't it? It's one panorama after another.
Yes.
So it really is. I think it had to be this one. So originally, the original Rani image was just her on her own in a kind of a black, almost like a crow type look. Um, but then Mark came back and said he wanted one in the scene was when the doctor walks in and sees her for the first time in her office. So I thought that it should have a good view.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When the times that I've been to New York, I've absolutely just done the touristy thing of saying, "Oh my gosh, the buildings are so tall here." But like to get the
Absolutely.
scale is really something that you know you have to see it to believe it. But it's
Yeah.
also like that's something that you're transmitting here
Mm.
as well. And then we've got here next the beautiful shot of the stage and this very climactic moment. Talk to me about this putting this
Well, this
together.
was again, and the original. It was very similar. The original concept work for this was her. I'd drawn her and just an edge of the stage with people kind of holding their hands up. And but I wanted it to be a bit more of a Wembley Stadium type look, where you felt like there were thousands of people in this
Yeah.
holding up their wristbands and glowing. So yeah, I thought and I knew that Madison Square Gardens. I'd been there years ago to see a basketball match, or game, sorry, not
Oh,
match. And yeah, and so I knew that the size of it was huge. So I just wanted to kind of capture that
yeah,
really.
absolutely.
And then
Again,
and then
talking about,
Andrew Stacey being the figure is just, I mean, it's just
yeah,
phenomenal.
it's great. It's such a fun moment, and
Yeah.
you've captured it beautifully. And then here we're talking about references. We've got quite a few here. So I see here Psychic Circus. So greatest
Yeah.
show in the galaxy reference. Love that.
Yeah.
We've got Cats the musical and Phantom being advertised here, but and
It there was more. So this one was
there's
this was cropped a bit because I think originally, and I'm not too sure with this, I think the boarding, I think because the figure, when I did this, there was the Rani's TARDIS was a ticket booth, which I had a photograph of when I was in New York. Good number of years ago. I caught this ticket booth. I thought it's a beautiful ticket booth and it really Art Deco. So I wanted to use that, but originally it was in this image,
oh
and
wow.
the next to it was Wicked, Phantom of the Opera, Cats, and there was one other. I can't remember what it was now, but it was all linked to kind of like a Rani-esque type villainy type thing. But then Mark said to me, "Well, the time it's set, Wicked wasn't there, and something else wasn't there, so I had to crop that board. So you can, if you look at the top of that,
Okay,
it's
I
been cropped.
see.
But then he wanted a dematerializing TARDIS, so I then took out the TARDIS from the image. So I did two,
Okay,
one with it in, one with it out. So and then the flyer of the Space Girls.
I love that. Yep.
Well, I mean, Paul is obsessed with Spice Girls. It's either Spice Girls or Madonna or what's the other one? Guy Garvey. So those three he's obsessed with. So Space Girls, obviously, it was a play on Spice Girls, Spice Girls. So yeah, put that in, almost like as the TARDIS is dematerializing, it's wafting
Yeah,
a flyer.
that's
So yeah,
incredible.
I just put those sorts of things in. But then I also did I did a TARDIS which was dematerializing, um, which didn't make it, but I think that he wanted various versions of it, and there were different versions of the TARDIS. There was roundels in one of them, but the roundels had to be taken out
Oh,
for some reason. And there was the Rani standing in the TARDIS was another one. So yeah, and I think they
that's
incorporated then the guy drinking in this image
yes,
of
yes.
the surprise moment, as it were.
That's incredible. Oh, and we have here this tickets booth, um,
And
and
then
uh, and then we have the sparkles as well.
the tickets. So down the side, the poster says tickets at reduced discount, inclusive sale or whatever, which obviously spells TARDIS. So it's
It's incredible. That's
so,
incredible.
and then it was the sort of, so where the green doors were in the middle, that was just going to be a shutter with and roundels in the background. So the roundels were taken. So I had to kind of quickly put something in ornate in to make it look TARDIS-esque, but
I'm not
um,
over the tickets at reduced discounted ingredients.
I know. I was like, what can I put? What words can I put? I've got to put it as a TARDIS. I've got to make sure I get it. But yeah, so I'll put that in. But I think I'm, it was great fun. Just great fun to do, and it's like,
That's
great.
incredible. And the neon sign.
Mm.
Wow. Wow. Brilliant, brilliant. And here, I think you were mentioning earlier.
Yeah, that was the first concept of the Rani, which is the first thing I drew because yeah, but again, it was very kind of Katamari type look, and I mean, the thing is, when you draw these things, you're not sure where they will fit into the annual, the page, what they're going to be like. What does the the publisher want. So this was the first thing I sent them, and she was supposed to have like a Gallifreyan symbol earrings, but they didn't really work out very well. But yeah, so that was the first thing I sent them.
I love the earrings. I was gonna say I love those.
I
I
think
didn't
I
even.
think Paul originally didn't want it to be the Kate O'Mara Rani. I think he wanted like a different version, but I sent him this, and he went,
He did.
"Okay, yeah, that's fine."
He did mention in our interview that he wanted it originally to be Missy, but because we couldn't do anything beyond 1996,
Yeah,
we couldn't do Missy. But Ronnie was an
yeah,
incredible choice as well.
yeah.
I love what you've done with the drips down at the bottom. Is just I love that. That's
Yeah, again, you don't know how they're going to play on the page, or how they will fit on the page, or whether they want it as a scene or whether they want it as an individual
Mhm.
character. So I just
Yeah.
kind of like sent some ideas, really.
And the purple of the glasses and the mascara and the hair tie. Love that coordinated outfit. And then the
Yeah,
necklace
it's in the
also
script.
matches.
It's in the story that she's got purple, um, and I wanted her kind of skin to be quite, well, not translucent, but quite horrific, really. But yeah, I was,
That's
but
so
again, it
cool.
was again that was all hand drawn and with
Yeah.
pencil and watercolor and things like that. So transferring that across, or I didn't in the end, but moving across from what I do to digital was huge.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Because you
exciting and it was, you know, challenging, which is great. Always a
yeah,
good challenge.
absolutely. Then we've got here this lovely scene.
So this is when the chameleons, or they all appeared in the Doctor's TARDIS.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure it's at the end or whether it's I think I think it's at the end. I can't
Yeah.
remember in the story now, but it was too much like the original characters. So um, I had to get rid of that.
Oh,
And there was another
stunning.
I did another one where there was like slashed to make it a little bit more different. But
Yes. Yes. We've got
oh yeah, that one there.
this
Yeah.
variation. Yeah. I mean, I love it though because you've got the wonderful that the ironwork in that TARDIS for the Eighth
Mm,
Doctor's TARDIS, the
mm.
seal of Rassilon in the background. I mean, the slashes just, I mean, they look absolutely embedded into them. It's really, I think that's something I think takes some skill to add, like that I see in your all of your artwork is getting that perspective, that depth coming through. It's until you've tried to do something like this, you don't realize just how difficult everything is, from the clothes to the face to
Yeah. And that
the
was like a week to do that. It's like a week. Or could you just? I was like, okay, yeah, I've got to mark some students' work, but I'll do this as well at the same time. So it was all. It's kind of like I take my hat off to the artists and the illustrators who do this full time. I really do. I mean, it's just such a rewarding, but I mean, gosh, it's such uh, an amazing job to do. When you look at things like that go into Doctor Who Monthly and any illustrations really, you don't realize how much work goes into them.
yeah,
Um,
that's something that I've
it is
discovered
just amazing.
in interviewing the artist. I mean, and also it's true for the writers as well. But because I'm more familiar with the writing side of things, and I'm not an
Mm,
artist. It's very fascinating to me to talk to artists, and naively I thought from the moment the timer starts from the moment you touch pen to paper. But there's so much thought work and planning that happens prior to that, and
mm,
so much like a deep understanding of architecture and the world in 3D. And as we talk about backgrounds and stuff, that's something that's just amazing to me. It's just that you have to have this sort of 3D world that you understand how to create and place a camera in, that's just the view from the page, and understand how that all looks and works. And I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I didn't understand how much there's a crossover between engineering and architecture, and understanding that side of things when you're
Absolutely,
an
absolutely.
artist.
And on top of that, then you've got to have the the emotions of the piece, or you've got to have the feel of the piece as well as that. So you've got the technical side of it, but then you've got to capture all those moments where, which I think Andrew does brilliantly in lots of
Mhm.
the facial stuff that especially the guy at the end with the drink, the kind of the surprised look,
Yes.
those sorts of things are just amazing. But so you've got to capture all those things on top of your kind of like basic techniques that you do. So
Right.
hands off to them all, I say. I mean, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it is such a display of just talent and also that attention to detail, the references, but also the deep care for the series and the project is just evident throughout. And one of the things that's kind of cool about this annual is as I mean, the annuals have always been incredible from the 1972 to 87 and 89, all the ones that have been put out by trackers. But as I've talked to people who've worked on multiple annuals, they're always saying about how, you know, oh, I've improved so much in the space of time since this
Mm,
particular annual.
mm,
And so
mm,
every single one just seems is getting better and better and better from the editors to down all the way down to the artists and the writers. And
mm.
it's just it's incredible to see how everybody is improving. And as you said, your figure drawing is better now, and you can look back at your first ones and say, I'm so much better now. But that's not the
Absolutely.
experience for the reader. The reader
No.
just sees these wonderful illustrations on the page, and it guides their time through the story. And too much text is just on an empty page. I found that it helps me to stay engaged with the story and to enjoy it and to have these
Yeah,
big reveal moments too.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it is a massive learning journey for all of us. And I know that Paul with his writing, knowing what his first stories compared to what he writes now, they're much more sophisticated, and and the same with me with moving to digital. It's all a fantastic journey, but it's an experience I never think I'd have got and the feedback you get, as I said, from Mark, he would feedback and give you the points, things like that, was fantastic. So I mean, you could it was a great learning experience. I think that's one thing I got
Yeah.
from it. Great seeing it in the publication, but such a thrill to go through all that process, and then see it finally. But it was because then again, going right back to when we started, talking to Paul, getting his ideas, reading his thing, trying to think, okay, do my ideas match with his, and then Andrew then looking at my work and then putting figures into the background. So I mean, it's like a melting pot, isn't it? Really. So
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, well, I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together today. This has been really
Thank
fascinating
you, Alex.
to
It
have you
has.
on, hear your process, how you're connected with these other, contributors to the annual. That was so
Oh yeah.
exciting. And I'm so glad to have connected with you today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Alex. Lovely speaking to you. Take care.
Bye.